Hi, I'm Della Sweetman. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer for FleishmanHillard and the Head of Global Creative and Planning for the agency. I am the jury president for the inaugural Creativity and PR jury at LIA this year. My experience at LIA this year was fantastic. It's actually my first time at LIA. It was actually the first time at LIA for several of our jurors, save a couple of them. It was just a wonderful experience. When we came here, one of the things that we all reminded ourselves was, first and foremost, this is a creative awards festival. And that was a really important thing for us to keep in mind as we were doing the judging, just as a steer for what we would be looking at in terms of the kind of work that we were rewarding and what the criteria for what we were rewarding for. Some of the trends were, there was a lot of work in social responsibility and public service, right? That was actually one of our strongest categories when we were looking at the work, so there's quite a lot there. And of course, there's so much, purpose work out there at the moment and some really wonderful work. So that was a big part of it. There was a lot in gender parity, women in sports, social and human rights. But then we also saw, on the other hand, work from brands that was just about lightening the atmosphere, right? Work that would just bring you a smile or some joy and just some uplift. So we were trying to strike the balance of rewarding work that was, meaningful and purposeful, and at the same time other work that was just simply a really, really good idea that would, bring some joy to people. So those were some of the themes. But I think the other thing that we were watching for is the use of modern PR techniques. Right, so that was also something that we will look for. There was quite a bit of work that featured the metaverse and virtual influencers. So what we were looking for, first and foremost, was the idea, right? Beautiful insight and a brilliant idea, but first and foremost, the creative idea was central to our evaluation. And being that it is a creative awards festival, that was a helpful steer for all of the jurors. We were very aligned that we were here to focus on creative and the creative output, and therefore we were squarely focused on the merits of the idea. Ingenious idea, with great storytelling behind it, and as I said, a beautiful insight. But first and foremost, the idea. And then where we might be tied in the evaluation and the discussion is what kind of outcomes did it drive, right? And what kind of outcomes that are not your traditional PR metrics, but outcomes that are more business outcomes, societal outcomes, behavior shift, cultural shifts, perception shifts. That's what we were focused on. But the idea and the integrity of the idea was a big part of the deliberation. One of the things that we really took to heart coming here as a jury was the fact that, since it is the inaugural creativity and PR competition here, is that we needed to set the standard, right? Set the guidelines for how the craft would be evaluated, not just in this instance, but from here on out. That was really important for us. So we were pretty judicious and discerning, right? There was a lot of deliberation about, does this really live up to the standard of the category or the discipline in the way that that it needs to, right? So that was a very important part of it. But we saw some really beautiful work. I mean, the good news is we awarded 2 Grand LIAs. Which is fantastic, and we all gave ourselves a round of applause when we announced and aligned on our first Grand LIA, which is just a beautiful piece of work that came out of Honduras, which was the morning after island case, and just this great symbol, right, of a woman taking back her reproductive rights. It was such a beautiful and poignant piece of work, and so that was the Grand LIA for the public service social responsibility. I was personally really moved and relieved. That's where we landed, because it is such a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. And then we were really pleased in the overall category of creativity and PR outside of the public service and social responsibility work that we awarded, to be able to give a Grand LIA to the Vienna Tourist Board for Vienna Tourist Board strips on OnlyFans, which was a really interesting choice. right? And there was a lot of deliberation around that. It's like sort of core to the idea was putting a spotlight on public censorship, on social platforms. And there was a lot of healthy debate, as you can imagine, about that, but it certainly was. When we think about modern PR, right, we typically think about PR techniques as opposed to like really thinking about work that would push the boundaries. PR as a industry and as a craft traditionally is very risk averse. So this is, certainly something that I'm sure is going to raise a lot of interest and dialogue because we are awarding it with a Grand LIA.